Oh, alright, it's all done and up and running. Cool. Alrighty. It's time for more hobby debt. Today, I'm going to be working on this super cool venomcrawler. He looks like an eBay rescue, because every time I start painting him, for some reason I just lose like all motivation. Which is a shame, because he's an awesomely super cool model. But for some reason just something hits me and I'm like, nope. I'm going to do a tiny bit of a color and then I'm going to move on to something else. So, cleaning out the hobby debt, Mr. Venomcrawler. It is his time to shine. So, we still have a couple things to figure out with him before I start painting him. So, let me move some stuff around over here. So my Chaos Space Marines, they look like this. Or they look like this. Or they look like this. Minus the dog hair. They look like that. So I don't have a single unit or faction of Chaos Space Marines. What I did with my Chaos Space Marines was I took them and painted them to be all the different Chaos Space Marine chapters. Pretty much as whim hit me and pretty much as I got inspiration for doing it. So some of these guys are Black Legions, some of these guys are Word Bearers. I've got some Emperor's Children, some Alpha Legion. I've got pretty much everything but Night Lords I painted. So they make this really cool kind of like multicolor horde when they're on the table, which looks really awesome. But it also means that like I don't have one consistent theme that I'm doing. So for example, like the this guy, he is a he is Horus Heresy Emperor's Children's colored. And I'm still sort of working on his colors too. So this guy I kind of wanted to be Black Legion. And really he's a lot more of a like Arn Warriors, or are they Arn Hands? I don't know, the fucking robot guys. He's a lot more of like a robot guys kind of creature. But I liked the idea of him being Black Legion. Just because, I don't know, it stands out, I think. Actually, it really doesn't. It sort of blends in. I don't know why I wanted him to be Black Legion, but I did. So he's going to be Black Legion. So sort of my other Black Legion daemon thing that I've done is this guy. Oops, move over, buddy. So I kind of wanted them to be sort of similar. So he's got this sort of sickly skin color here, which is not that gray. It's our good buddy, there it is, Castle Gray. So we're going to use that for the skin blocks. And then he's got some silver here with Agrax Earthshade over it. And that's just gunmetal. So that's what that is. And then we've got some matte black for the black bits. And we've got some, what I believe is called greedy gold. There it is. And then we've got some greedy gold. This one leaks super bad. The red is vampire red, but I don't know how I'm going to incorporate the red into this guy. And the blue for the energy stuff, we're not going to worry about. This guy's not going to have any of that. And these red wires, they're just Mephiston red, because I've got it and it does a job. All the claws and stuff are skeleton bone. This guy's teeth will be the same as well. Yeah, so I sort of want to do him in a very similar color scheme so he matches up with this sort of other Black Legion demon guy. So let's go put him back. Oh. And we'll get to work. So the greedy gold is kind of thin, which is obnoxious, especially when you're trying to do trim. But it's the color I've used so far. I don't want to repaint all the other guys, so he's going to keep the same annoying color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down one coat of it on his trim, and it's not going to look super amazingly good, but it will lay the base for this next coat, which will round it up and look nicer. So I'm just going to go through and knock out that trim. It's going to overflow in some areas. That's going to be okay. The last thing we're actually going to do, we're actually going to touch up the black last. Now normally you paint from the lowest layer up, sort of like how you're getting dressed. So, you know, you put your underwear on, then you put your shirt on and stuff like that. And you do that because, you know, in theory you're not going to touch the lower levels once you've done the top, but if you try to do the lower levels after you've done the top, you're going to touch the top, stuff like that. But I find with some of this trim, it's actually easier to clean it up with the bigger, like with the lower level paint, than it is to keep it on the upper level. And that's probably just my hang-ups with being a not the best ever painter. You know, somebody else will probably be able to do a better job of that than me. But that's sort of how I like to do that. So I'm not going to worry about being super too incredibly impossible neat here. But I am going to try to be a little neat so I have a little bit less cleanup if I need to. So just going to go ahead, knock this out. Now he has a pretty lot of this trim, but annoyingly he doesn't have it everywhere to really carry the color around the model. So we're going to pick out some other bits to make gold as well as the trim as we get to them. So for example, the front spikes on that front leg there, the armor on that front leg actually doesn't have any trim, it's pure black, but I wanted a color to pull out. Now logically I should have done those in silver, because I'm planning on doing some of the other spikes in silver, but I wanted it to carry that gold down into the very front of the model, because he's not going to have it there on those front legs and it's going to look weird. We on cam? Yep, we are. Cool. Alright. Man, I got dog hair everywhere. There we go. Now you can see that I started doing some of the gold in other areas. And I'm not going to super worry about cleaning that up this time, because that'll get a second coat as well. Just trying to get that initial base coat down, that initial base color for the trim. I will be doing a wash over all the trim, just because I think the super bright gold's a little bit too much. So I always hit it with Agrax Shade, and it sort of breaks it down a little bit. Except for my, except on my Emperor's Children guys, because they seem like the kind of fancy douches that would have super shiny, sparkly armor. There we go. Alright. Okay, so as you can see, there's like a tongue in there. I'm not sure what color I'm going to do that yet. So across a lot of models, you'll find what is like soft tissue, essentially like that. Things like the insides of mouths or tongues. Sometimes the areas around eyes. Case of all my corn demons' buttholes, but you know. You'll find sort of soft tissues like that, and really need a color to pull it out. But the question always becomes of, do you want that to be a focal part of the model or not? Because sometimes they're in weird areas where you don't want the user to look. This is especially true with a lot of the Nurgle stuff. You know, you really want your user's eye to go to the center of the model. That's still in cam? Yep. Bring it down a little, then it'll focus a little better. You really want your user's eye to go to the center of the model and to the head of the model, right? Because you're selling it as a character. You know, you want people to perceive it as a character. So lots of times when there's like tongues and like goopy bits and stuff on like shoulder pads and stuff, it's really hard to know what to do with those, especially on the Nurgle stuff. You know, do you want it to really stand out and sort of like rock and roll, or do you want it to kind of just blend in and not draw away from the center mass? And that can be a real challenge, you know. Luckily this guy sort of has them in really nice spots. He's got one right in the middle there. He's got his mouth and his tongue there, and that'll bring your eye in. He also has a bunch of like robot spider eyes, so we can also make those a bright kind of snatching color, and they'll also bring the user's eye in. So that'll be super good. But there are some in sort of more weird spots, like on the one side there. You know, I don't really want to super make users focus there. I'd rather have them look at the face of the model. But at the same time, I don't want to do orphan colors. So it really gives me a couple of options. You know, I can choose to make those a little bit brighter, because I want to do the main tongue a little bit brighter. Or I can choose to make them less bright, and then make the main tongue less bright, and have the eyes be the catching part. I'm not super sure what I'm going to do yet, so I'm probably going to save those to one of the last steps. So I know I was like, I'm not going to clean up the trim, or I'm not going to make it darker yet, but my brain's like, you should make that darker. So again, I'm not super worrying about being neat with the trim. It will take another coat, and then I will clean it up with the black. And my brush just split. But one of the nice things doing the trim is it sort of makes the model feel a little better. It makes it feel less sort of incomplete. I always feel like half-done trims are one of those things that make me go, oh man, that model's not finished being painted yet. Because it's not, but you know, when people choose to only do part of a trim or something, it sort of triggers me. I don't know. I'm weird. Anyway, so yeah, so we're just going through. This guy has a lot of trim. He also has a weird mix of flesh and tubes that sort of go all through his body. And they're really neat details. But we're going to be doing them with two colors that will stand out from each other but aren't super contrasting. We're going to be doing them with the Castle Gray and with the Gunmetal. So when I spray these, I'm going to have to be careful with what level of matte they get, because those colors will blend more in if the top coat is super matte, and it will look less good. Alright, so let's see, we don't have any armor there. This is all good enough for round 1 before we do cleanup of round 2. Okay, this just all needs round 2, but for round 1 it's good enough. Some areas in here we'll hit to. Oh, there's a lot of paint on that brush, Jesus. Hit some areas in there though. Okay. Alright. Let's see. Yep. Alright, we'll start on the legs then. The legs have trim too. Just gonna go ahead and. So I'll be super honest, I have a little bit of a trouble seeing where the trim is and isn't with this black primer that I use. It's one of the reasons why I'm leaning so much closer to the model than I normally do, or normally try to on screen anyway. And that's because I do genuinely have some trouble seeing where the trim is and isn't. These black primers are super black. But the nicety is that if any of the paint ever chips off, you won't have this big ugly white spot. And if you miss anything, like say a part under the model or something, it's way less apparent if you do it in black versus if you do it in white. You know, say you're showing your model to your gaming friends or whatever, you know, and they pick it up and they turn it over, and you're like, oh, I forgot to paint the belly or something, you know? Because, you know, stuff like that slips your mind when you're doing models. You know, or you forgot to paint like the back of the wheels on a vehicle or something. You know, somewhere that is not immediately apparent, but if you really get in there and look at it, you can see it. And a lot of people will just be like, whatever, I'm not painting those areas. But if you do white primer for them, those areas that you were like, nah, I'm not doing those, they really stand out. Way more than if you just were to do it in black. But again, during black, you have a lot of coverage trouble, and you also have a lot of trouble seeing some of the details on it. You know, like a lot of this trim, I'm just sort of guessing where it is, and I'm like, oh, yep, that's right, more than actually knowing where it is, because I'm having trouble seeing it. The camera can probably actually see it better than I can. Yes, but it's sort of the side effect of black armor. Or black primer. I know a lot of people like to do the black armor just as super dark gray, and then you do the edge highlights in black, and it looks pretty good. It really does. It probably actually looks better than just pure black armor, but I have this primer, and the other guys are painted pure black, so I want him to match. So we got a little bit more armor here on one of the buggy legs. Really, design-wise, this guy is pretty much just a Chaos Space Marine on steroids. A lot of the same kind of like busted up tubes, a lot of the same iconography and filigree. And I know he's supposed to go with them, so obviously that's what he should be. But anything you would do in painting a Chaos Space Marine is the same stuff you'd do painting this guy. He's just a bigger version of it all. Actually, I've been wondering about the Helldrakes and how they are to paint. Because they're kind of similar to this guy, but I think a little bit more mechanical. I think they're less meaty. At least I think so. I haven't taken an amazingly close look at them. I also don't think you can buy these separate. I think they have to come from the Start Collecting box. Which honestly is kind of a downer. Because if there was like a multi-part version of one of these, it'd be super, super rad. Having a force that's like just a bunch of like demon engines. Pretty cool concept. But since you can only get this guy from the Start Collecting box, it kind of sucks. That is a fantastic box, though. The Chaos Space Marine Start Collecting box. Just like amazingly pure wonderful that thing is. You get a ton of points. Like you can play a combat patrol game with just that box for your army. You get a lot of cool options. You get obliterators, you get greater possess, you get a whole unit of Chaos Space Marines with a bunch of cool options. Are they the most tactical options? Oh fuck, I don't know. But there are definitely a lot of cool options in there. You get like a big auto gun, and you get a guy with a big axe, and some cool shit. How does that filigree work? Oh, I see. And there's like a thing popping up the top of it. Okay. Yeah, it's really cool. You get a master possession. You're sort of like floating. He's a super cool looking model. Where is he? There he is. Oh. Yeah. Just super, super rad. So yeah, that Start Collecting box is legit. And I mean, if you want to play a bunch of like combat patrols, like starting to learn to play 40k kind of thing, that box plus like a box of Necromunda gangers to use as cultists, super, super cool. It'll give you just ton of options for what your 25 power level list is going to be, and then super good stuff. Alright. So, the last bit of filigree I think we have is around this head here. So that's actually kind of what I did for my Chaos Space Marine army. I picked up one box of Chaos Space Marines a while ago. Just kind of like I'm having a crazy day and need to buy something kind of purchase at the game store. I picked them up a while ago, and I bought the Chaos Space Marine box. And that's pretty much my army right now for these guys. And I mean, honestly, it's more than enough options to my own cam? Yeah, okay, cool. More than enough options to play as they go, you know, because I can do a bunch of stuff with the obliterators. I can do a bunch of stuff where they're like strong melee instead, or I could have a bunch of shooting. And all the commanders are actually commanders is probably the wrong word. All of the like Chaos Space Marine unit Commanders, unit, master, I don't know what the fuck they're called. The guys in a unit of Chaos Space Marine who are the boss. The boss Marines. I don't know. They actually all magnetize super, super, super well. Because a lot of the poses they're in, you can just hack off their hand pretty much at the wrist and swap it around. So if you have a box of Chaos Space Marines, and they have all the options for like the Power Maul and the Axe, and and you have one of the guys from the Start Collecting box, super easy to clip his hand off, magnetize it to the wrist, and then you can swap it in and out. Same thing with the pistol. If you're like, man, I really like this guy, but I want him to have an auto pistol instead of a plasma, you can clip them off really easy with how they come on this sprue with the standard box and mix it with the Start Collecting box. It's really good. Yeah, really can't recommend that box enough. Yeah, and then a box of Necromunda guys makes amazing cultists. I've yet to pick some of those up myself, but I mean I have some Necromunda guys, but not in like a main force cultist kind of way. I picked up the what is the ladies faction called? The Eschers. I picked up their unit that had the cats in it. Oh yeah, I guess there's some trim there and there too. Okay. Yeah, I'm still not sure what I'm going to do with them yet, but they're just cool models. I want to pick them up. I was hoping my game store it had the one with the dogs and the guys with the jump packs, but no luck. Alright. So I think this now will actually be the last bit of filigree to get that color blocked in. So after this, we're probably going to do the flesh color, just so I can start and sort of start planning that in my head, because I think bunch of these. Am I on cam still? Yeah, cool. I think a bunch of these areas are actually pretty fleshy. Underneath there, that's actually armor, but in the front's all flesh. Well, I've got some gold out, so let's two layer some of the more filigree then. Get some more color down on it. This brush was just getting too thick. There we go. Yeah, we'll go through and we'll knock out some more of the filigree, since I apparently popped way too much gold out instead.
Yeah. A lot of the Chaos stuff, because it's there's so many different Chaos Legions. A lot of it gets really neat opportunities for kit bashing too. So like all of the guys I was showing off earlier, they're all kit bashed, and usually little ways. You know, I didn't go super mega crazy with each one of them, but I wanted something that shows off that they're, you know, whatever legion they're from. So like maybe my world leaders, they have extra skulls and spikes and stuff, and the robot Arn guys, they a bunch of them have like servo skulls and stuff like that with them, or they have robot appendages. My word bearers, all their cloth is painted to look like it's got words written on it of some kind, like it's scripture, not cloth. And they've got like extra bits of like tapestry and stuff hanging off them. Not tapestry, like scrolls and stuff like that. Should all of this actually be gold? Kind of thinking yes. Yeah, we'll make all that gold. Yep. Normally I don't like making decisions like that on the fly, but I think that's the right one to do right now. Go. And again, I was going to do these spikes in silver, but I want some gold on this front leg to tie it in, and I don't want to make the whole piece gold because then there's no black. So there we go. Man, why did I dump out so much gold? I'm tired of painting filigree already. But no, these streams are good. They're getting me to work on my hobby debt here, you know. So the things from like box sets and stuff that for whatever reason I just haven't been able to complete. Probably because I bought new stuff, because that's the kind of dummy I am. Also maybe because I've got some kind of mental block about doing it. You know, that's how this is with this model. I started this stream and he looked like super eBay rescue. I mean, he still doesn't look amazing, but he was like turbo eBay rescue when I started the stream. And you know, that was because I started working on him probably a dozen times. Just picked him up, you know, started doing color and was like, oh, I'm gonna do something else. You know, I'm gonna go paint something else, or let me go finish this guy instead, kind of thing. And I just, for whatever reason, just never finished him. It's a shame because he's an awesome model, and I think he's going to be a lot of fun to play with when the world stops being stupid and we can actually play games again. Which, I mean, they keep telling me it's going to happen one day, right? One day we'll be able to have lives again. But we'll see. We'll see. There we go. Doing the front there, doing his little robot Spider-Man nosy. I might paint the area around the goggles eventually silver, but right now we'll just leave it as gold. Just hitting any areas that sort of standing out to me now as not having enough coverage. I do like how when you do a couple layers, how rich this gold becomes. So it becomes really bright and nice. It just takes a couple layers of it. You know, it's really got this kind of like gold kind of, I don't know, almost readiness to it. Sort of feels very dense and heavy, as opposed to something like this color, which has more of like a shine kind of than sort of the denseness. So that color ends up looking like this. This here on this cast demon. Come on, Mr. Cast Demon. There we go. That ends up looking like that, and this gold ends up looking like this. So you can see it's sort of like a darker color. This is a little more shiny. So. I'll stop butterfingering my models one day. Wow, that sounded bad. Or Slaneshi, I guess. Alright. So, that's enough cool trim for now. So we're going to block in some of the goopy, fleshy color. Again, I'm using Castle Gray for this. I love this color because it's sort of a cool gray, but it's like green based almost. So to me it looks a lot like unhealthy flesh. Like not like rotting Nurgle flesh, but like, you know, something where like the thing had not been taking care of itself and it was like gray and old and wretched. And this is one of those colors I associate with something like a Skeksis. I like it a lot. It's also a nice color used for things like rocks. As the initial base for those as well. Definitely one of my go-to colors. So you can see already it's going to stand out from the black a pretty lot. The gray is. And it should make his fleshy bits more apparent. But when we get over to the silver down here, it's not going to stand out as much. So when I top coat these guys, I'm just going to have to be careful because I want the shine on the silver to really help differentiate the two colors. So when I top coat them, I'm going to have to make sure that this guy doesn't end up being too matte, because if he does, you'll lose sort of the stronger differentiation in the colors there, because they'll be the silver will get matted down and they'll be closer in tone. So a lot of these models have these like flesh pipes. I'm always on the fence on how to paint them. If I just paint them like the whole thing's a pipe, or if I paint it like it's like a sausage casing and there's pipe inside of it. I'm really never sure how to do it. Some more up here. So there's a lot of tubes and stuff coming in and out. We'll pick those details out after all our colors are sort of blocked in. I know you can be super neat as you go, and it actually ends up saving you a bunch of time, but I don't know. I sort of get a better feeling for my colors and stuff as I go when I sort of paint it in blocks. Like I'm like, okay, well this is going to look like this, and this is going to look like this. So I was like, all right, well now I guess I can do those cables in this color because that's, you know, stands out, and this won't look like that. Instead of super planning everything ahead of time. Plus, lots of times there's like sort of hidden parts of models you never think about. You know, I was painting something recently and there was a holster. And it occurred to me as I was painting it, I actually needed another cloth color because the holster had a strap that went over it, and I wanted to pull that detail out because it looked cool. But I was like, damn, I've only sort of planned for one cloth color, and I got to figure this out. Alright, got some of his goopy bits done. We'll obviously need cleanup as well. There we go. Alright, that looks good there. Okay, so there's a little bit of goopy bits up in here, around the front here. It's just where the wires are coming out, and sort of the flesh is pouring around the armor there. Go. We got to do his face in goopy bits as well. So he has lips and gums and a little bit of flesh on top of it. So we're gonna put something in there. Same thing for the bottom jaw here. There we go. Getting our base colors in. Getting this side in. So there it goes. And I've got some face. I'm gonna figure out how the rest of this armor works. I really wish I hadn't put him on his base, but honestly, it would be such a hassle to remove him that it's sort of not worth doing it at this phase. Because there's definitely some goopy bits underneath of him. Don't know if the camera can really see that, but up in here, in the leg, there's some goopy bits. Well, there we go. Okay. Do these middle legs have skin on them? They do. Interesting. Okay. None of the other legs do. But they do. They have skin. Right there. So it goes all over there, doesn't it? Interesting. I didn't realize that when I first did this model. Yeah, one of the coolest conversions I've seen for this model was a strider somebody had turned it into. They had taken, I think, a Demon of Slanesh, or it was one of the Necromunda models. I don't remember which one, but they cut the face off of it and built the model in there like it was like a D&D style strider. Really cool. Really, really cool. I mean, the standard model is great, but it's just a really neat conversion. I was like, man, that's cool. Unless I really have an idea for something, I don't normally convert in the first model I get, because usually the default is pretty great. And I'm going to have to re-pick all that silver out, but it's okay. You know, unless like you really want something to be a character. So like all of my greater demons, they're all customized in some way or another. My greater unclean one, for example, has custom horns I made him. Using the horns that come with the kit, but you know, they're if you were to set him next to another great unclean one, he'd definitely stand out. Or my Lord of Change, who's here because I'm still working on him. He's got 3 heads, for example. So I wanted them to stand out as characters in some way. So that way, if they ever come up against another one, they're not identical. Because they're such a big part of the model. It's not like just some exposed Space Marine where you have 40 of the damn things, you know. Okay, so there's some green, there's some goop, there's some goop. Goop there, goop there. Alright, let's darken down some of the goop, I guess. Just hit some of the goop again. Make sure we have good coverage so it stands out from the silver where it's going to touch silver. Go. Oh, there's actually some up in here too. Interesting. Sort of where the exhausts are coming out is goop too. Okay. Nice. Okay. Well, minus a couple areas, I think that's all the colors blocked in, minus some of the big details. So, let's pull some other colors out of it real quick. While I'm thinking about it, let's do something in like a bronze kind of color. Let's do the exhaust pipes in bronze and some of the bits that are gonna pop out of the silver. Let's knock some of those out. Wasn't super thinking, super planning on adding this color, but looking at that exhaust now, I think it'll be really good. That brush is knackered, but it'll do a base coat, I think. Oh, will this one do better? That'll be better. Because this brass color is awesome, but it doesn't always cover super well. Sometimes it does, and then sometimes it's like, nope. Had a lot of trouble putting it over silver, for example, for some reason. But ironically, it's how I use it a lot. I use it to break up like things that are pure silver when they have details in them. It's another nice, just mechanical color to help pull some of the detail out for the user. Because if you just paint these silver, yeah, you can see the exhausts, but they look a lot cooler when they stand out a little. And because we don't want any orphan colors, we'll have to pull this silver into the other parts of the model somewhere. That's fine, we can do that. Maybe we'll do some of the gears and the legs or something in the silver. Give it a little bit more mechanical coloring. There we go. And there we go. Again, this will be multiple coats, but every journey starts with a step, so. All right. Nice. Okay, so now he's got a copper butt. So let's find some bits to color in. I do have. Let me actually swap brushes. Let me use up this paint first. Alright. So we have a couple things. We've got pistons that could be copper. We've got these sort of dots holding things together. One of the benefits of doing the dots is a little bit easier to paint. One of the benefits of doing the pistons is they look like they're in several more places. Or we could actually just do both and do like a mix of the two. So let's give that a go and see how that looks. And we're going to have to touch up the silver anyway. So it doesn't really hurt to try it out, and if it doesn't work, we'll just paint over it. Oh, it's a dot and a piston. Two for one. Got some kind of metal working gear ball joint thing here. Hit that too. Just be a nice little bit of detail to pull out on the silver leg. Yep, there we got that guy there. And let's see what we got. We got this part of the piston here. We'll hit that with silver, or with copper. That should look really cool when it's done. We got some more dots. So hitting every one isn't important. Making them perfect or whatever isn't important. What's important is to try to get some small details worked in there, because it'll make everything look a lot fancier. It'll give some more color depth to the model, and it'll pull some more details out for the user. But making sure we hit every single one of them or whatever that's not important. Anytime we get that kind of thinking, we want to avoid it. I have to paint everything just like this, or this has to be exactly like this. That's rough thinking, and it's a weird standard to hold yourself to, because you want consistency in your model, but you have to remember that the model is also an experience for the person viewing it. As long as it's a positive experience, it doesn't have to be perfect. When you put them down on the table and your opponent's like, yeah, these look awesome, let's mash our dudes together. That's really the goal, right? At that point, it doesn't matter if you forgot to paint one of the claws. The dude sees it and he's like, oh yeah, the claws look good, or whatever, right? You're conveying an experience to your opponent and to anyone that sees your models. And that's more important than perfection of painting. All right. Okay.
get some more copper, pull more of those details out. We'll touch up the silver around it. And then I will probably touch up the black then. And then I'll pick out the extra detail colors, like I'll pick out a few of the wires, and I'll do the eyes and the teeth and the tongues and stuff like that. At that point, where majority of the concept of the model is done. Yeah, the kind of stuff where I can paint it without causing a big, a big mess or something like that. Weird. Okay. Well, she's back now, so that's good. Just keep an eye on that. I was just so ingrained painting copper. I was like, ooh, man, just gonna paint this copper. Totally didn't realize the camera turned off. Wonder why it turned off. Weird. Keep an eye out. Alrighty. Let's do the tips here in copper. That'll give them a little something to stand out, and since they're so close to the face, it should help bring the user in there. There we go. Alright. Yeah, so I'll just do a little bit more color to help pull the user into the face once it's all done. So since I still got some copper, let's go ahead and do a second layer on some of the copper stuff just to help brighten it up some. Or patch up any areas we missed, stuff like that. Go. And there we go. Since we don't want to waste paint anyway.
Cam? Nope. Slightly off cam. Alright, still working on it. Go. Man, does he really have gold trim around the freaking gun?
Didn't see that. Super. Alright, let's touch it up, I guess. Alright, Greedy Gold. Here we go. There we go. Okay. Cleaning up the bits we missed. There we go. That looks good enough to me for coat number 1. Touching up little other gold bits I'd noticed while I was going around the model. That sucks. Well, let's wait on that because we're going to do gunmetal next, and then I'm sure I'll make some mistake on the gunmetal. Whoa! Hello. Why did you just explode everywhere? Gross. Okay, well that's one way to get paint out of the bottle, I guess. Alright, so let's grab some colors. And let's grab some of the gunmetal bits. We want to do these things back here. They're good and gunmetally. This is where we're going to try to be a little bit neater, because this is the phase where we're starting to, in theory, finalize colors. You know, after this phase, I don't want to have to break out gunmetal again. I don't want to have to break out copper again. If I have to, I have to, but you know, we're starting to pick the areas out. We're starting to finalize things. Make sure all that color when it's done is on the model. That kind of thing. And I'm starting to move into the actual
quote-unquote technical portion of the painting, and not just base painting. There we go. Get this guy too. Okay. There. There. Well, this is the start of us trying to be a little bit neater. Oh man, that should actually be black, not silver. Fuck. Okay, that's fine. We'll do that in black next. Alright, we on cam? We're on cam, cool. So the gun barrels are going to be silver. Just help them stand out a little bit versus being black. Okay, we got this chain up here. Painting at this step is probably the most fun, because this is the point where you're kind of like revealing the model. You know, I feel like you're sort of pulling it out of the base coat. It's kind of fun. Definitely the part, one of the parts that I like the best about painting models. Go. Alright, now let's start touching up some of the wires. Around that leg, we'll do that in black. Go. Do his front tendrils. Okay. Right side and left side. Take them over a little bit. There we go. There's that one. Alright. One of the challenges with this is the fact that it's going to be reflecting, the silver is going to be kind of reflecting black paint all the time. So there's going to be times you're like, oh, that's not painted, and then you look at it, you're like, oh no, it is. Right. He has like a little grate or something right here. Paint that in too. Does that have filigree that goes around it? Fuck, it does. Okay. Alright, painting that filigree in. We on cam? Yep, we're on cam. Cool. See, this paint's a little thicker now, but it'll still do. Not doing anything fancy with it, just painting a filigree, so trim, I guess. Since that's all we're doing, it'll do the job. Okay, we can check the area we painted earlier. Looks good still. Somewhere right here. There we go.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay. Start moving into doing some silver on the claws. We're going to pick a side, let's say this side, and we're just going to start knocking them out one claw at a time. So I probably have to stop pretty soon, but this way I know what I have to do later. Go. So I'm going to make sure I do both sides of each one. So then when I have to quit in a leg or two, I won't have to try to remember what I did and what I didn't do. We on cam?
Yep. Go. So that's the silver almost done. Got some of that to do there.